So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes, their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this afternoon, I'm delighted that we have with us Neil Curry, who's Managing Director at I.C.E Electronics. So, firstly, Neil, thank you for spending a bit of time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, I.C.E Electronics, what you do, how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris. Yes. I'm Neil Curry. I'm Managing Director of I.C.E Electronics. I've got a background in electronic engineering. My whole career has been surrounded in the area that we work in as a business, which is sensors and surrounding infrastructure. I.C.E Electronics as a company, we design and manufacture electronics for sensor signal conditioning, processing, and analysis in extreme environments. We deliver a range of electronic products for sort of high reliability in extreme environments and infrastructure. Our goal as a company really is to provide vital access to customer data, and our tagline is from reality to the cloud. We achieve that through our experienced engineering team, and as a company, we have access to cutting edge tools. We use all the industry standards and keep up to date with all of that. And we can basically manufacture anything from one to sort of 100,000 units using our portfolio of contract manufacturers.
Fabulous. Fantastic. So just for anyone to give an idea of what sort of clients do you work for? You don't have to name the client specifically, but you can, there's no problem.
Yeah. So we're in sort of three main sectors. One is motorsport and automotive. So we've got a lot of high-end tier one and tier two suppliers into general motorsport, Formula One. That makes up quite a good chunk of our revenue. And then industrial environments, and that could be anything from a crane to, a digger, that type of thing, but generally they're machines.
Yeah.
And then the other piece of the pie is non-destructive tests where we're doing electronics for corrosion monitoring, pull testing, that sort of more workflow based work. And then as a small percentage, we do sort of weird and wonderful where we're gun for hire. We do some consumer products, but generally the reason that we do those is because there's something interesting that's going to add to our sort of technology capability and portfolio. And generally that's like 1 or 2% of our revenue as a general rule.
Wow. Wow. So I guess to start the new F1 season, you're looking with interest to what's going on. I'm sure you're ready.
Yeah.
You must know ahead of everybody what's going on, I guess. But
A little bit, yeah. We do get a little bit of insight into, and so, well, certainly on the engines and powertrain side, and that sort of feeds down a little bit. I'm hoping I might actually get to go to the Formula One this year, which would be the first time since I set the company up. But yeah, it's just I think generally it's not a growing market, but it's a growing market for us, and um, it it's sort of interesting for the engineers. We get to work on
yeah,
things that we probably wouldn't get to, and it just keeps that sort of balance of mundane to interesting
yeah,
projects within it that keeps people interested.
makes perfect sense. And thinking about clients specifically, not necessarily the particular client, but what makes a great client for you? What type of organization, people that you work with? What makes an A grade one for you?
Well, to me, as probably people who align with our values. Um, I mean, that sounds corny, but that's essentially, people that we get along with, we like to work with. They are generally, they know what they want to do, and they've got a clear idea of how they're going to, how they're going to measure our outputs, essentially, and that sort of nice interaction. And generally, we're looking for long-term relationships with all of our customers. In fact, last year, 95% of our revenue came from repeat business.
Wow.
So that says we're not doing enough business development, but yeah, that's a good
It's
good
double-edged
stat, I
sword,
think.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's to your credit. 100, that really is to your credit. But yeah, I get you. Yeah, absolutely get your point. You could there must be another way of positioning that stat, which is would be something like 97% of our clients bought this year because last year or something like
Again, yeah, yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah,
If that
yeah,
helps,
yeah, yeah.
that,
Well, I mean, we're generally looking for longer term relationships,
yeah,
and we want to grow. The whole sort of premise of the business really is that we help those people grow, and then we grow with by
Yeah,
helping them grow rather
absolutely.
than, just doing one thing and forgetting about it. And a lot of our customers, they stay with us and we do more things with them and become a, valuable part of their supply chain essentially.
Brilliant. Yeah, brilliant. No, totally get that. And so if we sort of look back and start the beginning, what if you could tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into business, and why this particular one for you?
Yeah. So actually, I was recalling a story. I actually tried to start my first business when I was about 15. I signed up to, there was a local grant scheme available, and some of the career advisors came into school. And I came home with a load of leaflets and signed up to this local authority thing and started phoning the house. And my parents were probably not best impressed. So it's something that I've really always wanted to do, is set up my own business. And I went into engineering as a sort of career. That was just, I don't know, me and computers just got along from a young age. And then that just led to where I am now, really. So everything I did in my, I sort of positioned, I worked for a university spin out company before I set up ICE, and really sort of used that opportunity to learn a whole load of things on the ground that I probably wouldn't have known otherwise. And then the opportunity, I don't know, just the timing just seemed right at that point. Well, not exactly right, but close enough when I set it up. And yeah, took it from there, really.
Brilliant, brilliant. And so as you were growing up, you obviously said you always wanted to start a business, but did you have any other plans in any other direction? As you,
No, I don't think I was. I think I was more interested in the business than I was what it was doing, actually.
yeah,
If I'm honest. I think at any point in my life, I was just attacking what was in front of me as the thing that I could do, essentially. And the opportunity arose. I had a good contact base to start with when I set up ICE. And really that I've sort of grown and pulled on that, and that's how we have our business, really, is mostly through that sort of extended network of people.
it reminds me very much of our founder, Brad, who described himself as an entrepreneur from the age of, I think he said from the age of 6, when he sold
Yeah,
his Christmas presents to his brothers. But then he was a real entrepreneur at 7 when he started to rent them to his brothers, and
brilliant.
he made more money and he got the presents back. And but it was interesting that he founded our organization, Action Coach, as a coaching organization, because
Yeah, okay.
originally he got into training, and he got into training because he was always an entrepreneur, wanted to be in business, very similar to you. And he was
Yeah,
running a photocopy business. If you go back many, many years ago, when you had to photocopy documents rather than just send them by email. And
yeah,
he was doing very well, and lots of business people came in to get photocopies done. And they're all saying, why, how he managed to do so well in such a difficult time. And he started to say, well, and he spent a huge amount of time and money learning. And he said, well, I'm just doing the basics. I'm measuring my marketing. I've got processes in place. I've got scripts for sales, etc. And he could see so many business people with a blank look on their faces saying, well, we don't even know what that is, if that makes sense.
yeah,
And, and so he
yeah.
started in training, because and so then that became the business. Was like, there's obviously an opportunity to help people with knowledge,
Yes, yeah,
and then ultimately we became coaching, because he then realised that knowledge without action has no value. So we're very much into, as well as providing knowledge, it was about making people do things. But that was very similar to how you've described. That was just basically the sort of path of least resistance, if that makes sense, into
yeah,
business.
yeah, 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 definitely. I agree. Yeah.
Brilliant. And so as you've grown IC Electronics, what are some of the key challenges you've had to overcome?
Um, I think staff is always a challenge. Finding the right people has
Yeah.
been quite tricky. I think some of that is just luck. I just happened to find my most two senior guys, who I sort of trust enormously with everything. Those hires have made the biggest change to the organization, probably, I think, in terms of helping it grow and helping grow the rest of the team.
Yeah.
And probably cash flow is probably high up there as a second. We do a lot of manufacturing, and the busier we get, the more money that goes out.
Yes,
The more working capital that we need. And I haven't taken any investment. It's always all from retained profits. So that's, just I think that limits our growth, but I'm comfortable with that. But I think that's, something that's I'd describe it as a challenge because it's something that we have to watch and manage and, be careful with. I think cash is king at the end of the day.
Cash is absolutely king, and it is understand. It is being in control of the model. I think is one of the things we
Yeah,
talk about. Is understanding because it's one of the key points of mastery is financial mastery. Because if at the simplest level, if we don't have a profitable model, or even a cash manageable model, growth can actually cause more problems than
yeah,
it
absolutely.
gives.
Yeah.
We could run out of money if, as you say, it's a cash dependent growth business. So it's really important to understand that, I think.
Yeah, and something that I've spent quite a lot of time doing all our processes, and that's sort of ingrained into our sales process. Essentially, really is all of that. As an order comes in and it immediately goes in cash flow, and all of the sort of dependencies go in, and
Brilliant,
so sort of growing up around that, I think really, yeah.
wonderful. And in terms of things you've learned, what are some of the biggest learnings you've had about running and growing your business yourself?
Um, well, I'll probably give you a shameless plug right now because
Good,
so
please.
I did the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses course. It was about a year and a half ago now, last in 2023, um, and actually some academic business knowledge has been quite useful. I think up until that point, I shunned a lot of that because I got a very analytical engineering background. I
Yep,
felt like I had a good handle on all those things, but actually doing some learning outside of the business, learning some actual academic business tools, quite useful. Um, I think in hindsight, I wish I'd done it earlier, but at the same time, I don't know whether it would have been as relevant earlier because I've got an actual much more of a thing as a company to play with now than I did before. But I definitely recommend all of those things. I think we did the help to grow, and that was the thing that sort of like really sort of set out our initial stall of where we're going, and then the Goldman Sachs course is just our business growth plan out of the back of that has really cemented exactly what we're going to be doing, and I just feel much more comfortable making decisions around that. So
brilliant.
that's those two things. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, you can't be having a good plan. I mean, and one of the things that Brad, our founder, told me a long time ago that I always sticks with me for anyone that shuns plans was the value of a plan is in the planning, not just the plan.
yes, because it sort of bolsters your decision-making process. If you had that decision on its own without all of that, you'd find it really hard to find those bits of information. But actually, when you've got those things, even you can just find the direction that you're going much easier. And I think, and I've shared it with the team, and they're all sort of on board, and that's reignited their interest. And I try and do that quarterly with an
Brilliant.
update of where we are and all that sort of stuff. So that's good.
100%, and I think it just gives you that opportunity to say, well, this is how we want it to be, but what if it doesn't go quite like that? What if that happens? That you can start to replan. And you mentioned cash flow. What if there's a hit to cash flow? What might we do differently? And
Yeah.
it's been ready for that. I think it's the military that used the phrase no. I think it's no plan survives first contact with the enemy.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's true that, isn't it? Yeah, it's
and
very true. Yeah,
And so
it's
it's
true.
been,
Yeah.
yeah. And who was it? Mike Tyson's got probably even more straightforward one. Something like, all the strategy in the world goes out your head as soon as you get hit in the nose. Something like that. But I thought it was cool. So it's great that you've obviously engaged with the education and created a plan. And I think you're aware we're a business coaching organisation. I'm keen to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, life in general. Who's had the biggest influence on you?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, Probably various people along the way, actually. I mean, I have to. So I've currently got coach out of the back. So Melanie, who's our coach for the 10,000 small businesses, stayed on with us, and she's a standing board. But I also have well, he actually. technically works for the business, but Peter Trevor, who is the founder of our biggest customer now who's sold his business and now works as a business development role, but also a sounding board for me.
Brilliant.
It's been really useful. Individuals, just sounding board really, just to sound these things out and help with that. So yeah, probably those two people I would have said.
Brilliant.
Um,
Brilliant. And whether it's for them or other sources, do you have any favorite quotes or sayings about business or success that you find yourself using on a regular basis?
apart from shit happens. No, probably not. I don't think so. Not that I can think of. No.
Oh, good. No, shit happens is not a bad one because it's a good reflection on, we are going to have problems. The idea that we could go through any business like any life without problems is unrealistic. So, yeah,
Yeah,
race
and
it.
it's how you deal with it, I think, is the
That's it.
thing. Yeah, because you can't get away from the fact that it's going to happen. So
No,
you got to do your best to make sure it doesn't happen. But then when it does happen, you just got to say, yeah, okay, what are we
absolutely.
going to do about it?
Absolutely. I think it's
Yeah,
really, really key because it's so easy. The human brain has a capacity for the phrase I got from an American lady, which is awfulization. We have a
yeah.
great ability to awfulize something. So and what often is a small blip, maybe a small drop or something, we awfulize into the end of the world, whereas it's probably just a small drop.
Yeah, and I suppose that our business is quite complicated. So, there's many moving parts, and during the design phase, the customers' expectations might not be aligned with what they've asked us for, or what they've asked us for is not achievable,
Yeah,
or for whatever reason we have to reassess what we're doing, and that's just part of engineering.
yeah,
So building resilience around that within the team so that they're comfortable to say, bring that to head and say those things is important, I think, really.
brilliant, absolutely. And do you have any favorite books or podcasts on business or success that you use on or watch on or read on a regular basis?
No, but I am currently listening to Surrounded by Idiots, the personality guide,
Great.
recommended by somebody else, mainly because he keeps on classifying people all the time. And when I'm with him, I just wanted to understand what he's doing. But that's quite good, been quite insightful actually, even with just within the team.
We do a lot of work on that profiling. It's so powerful, firstly, to understand ourselves, but then build stronger teams through understanding and us understanding others and others understanding us way better.
Yeah, absolutely.
You get so much incredible more efficient working and better communication with clients and prospects too.
Yeah, because I think I sort of, there's it's quite broad strokes.
Yeah,
So it's not as very specific, and I quite like that because you don't have to necessarily pigeonhole people, but you can recognize their behavior. A certain person can have different behavior, can't they? But at least it
absolutely.
gives you some tools to understand how to deal with them,
Yes, and
which is quite good. Yeah.
it helps us, as you rightly say, it's behavior, not identity. So it's not who you are, it's how we
Yes.
behave. And if we understand that, then we can move around our behaviors to fit the need. Whereas if you don't understand it, people just think, well, this is who I am. Well, it's not who I am, it's how I choose to behave most of the time. But I could be
Yes.
in a different way.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And that might help me if I could be more flexible. Then all of a sudden, I can probably build rapport and communicate better with a whole bunch more people. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so, along the learning scale, what would you say you've learned about yourself so far on your journey, Neil?
Um, I'm probably I'm quite stubborn, and I'm still quite driven. I
Yeah,
think even after all that time, I'd still be the person who, would get up and drive those things. I don't tire of that very easily. Um, I don't know whether I knew that before or not. Um, but that's yes, definitely a reflection over the years, having seen people come and go. Um, I'd say that's something I could say that's something I've learned. Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I think that's one of the key traits of most of the people I talk to is being driven. Resilience is one that comes up a lot. You mentioned resilience in systems, but resilience in people.
Yeah.
is so key. And yeah, and I think the third one that I find is open-mindedness, is having an open,
Yeah, reflection.
yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
and a
Yeah.
seek for learning. The fact that however good things may be, there's probably still some more things that I can learn that can help make things better.
Yeah, and my behavior is not always perfect. I think that's the other thing, isn't it? Like sometimes
Yeah,
I look back on a relationship that I had with, an interaction that I had with somebody, and you think, oh, actually, I could have done that better. And I think it's important to do that.
yes.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, we can. I mean, the day we think we can't improve is probably the start of the decline of any organization or individual's growth. So it's just being open to the fact that yeah, we're probably going to get stuff wrong moving forward. But as you say, shit happens. Let's just
yeah,
move
I think so. Yeah,
and
yeah,
move on.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. And so looking forward now, what does the future look like for you guys? And what are the main challenges you see, if any?
So I think we'll probably post another 40-ish% growth this year. And the plan is to try and continue that certainly over the next few years.
Brilliant.
So that does come with a number of challenges.
Yeah,
Obviously, you've got to find revenue. So, I've sort of got a two-pronged approach. One is we've consolidated some of our sort of know-how and expertise into a bunch of products that are quite well, fairly simple, but we're going to try and push that as a revenue stream. So
brilliant.
it makes up about 3% of our revenue from 0% last year to
Yeah,
about 3% this year. So it's sort of started, and I'm sort of hoping to grow that to about 20% over the next couple of years,
brilliant.
along with the growth. And then the other part of the growth is just marketing because we just don't do any.
Yeah,
Um, so I've got the website that's going to be updated in the next day or so. And I've got a lady who's come on board who's going to do some social media things for us. But the challenge is really just going to be continuing that growth and, growing the team, managing all of the resources that we've got in a sort of sensible way, not going too much. Because I think generally our trajectory is quite upwards. But obviously, if you look underneath, you sort of add another member of staff, and our cost base comes up, and then it
yeah,
takes a while for that to catch up, and that sort of moves around underneath. And finding the right types of projects, sort of being able to say no and being able to find those people who want those projects. So yeah, I think there's few challenges there, but basically it's sales and team pretty much, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and no, yeah, totally get it, and yeah, I'm sure you're going to keep that success going. And I'm keen to know what you say to anyone that was thinking of going into business right now.
um do you know what? I actually think keep it simple would probably be one of my pieces of advice. I've constantly reminded that our business is really complicated by, the sort of hundreds and hundreds of components that go into
Yes,
a product, and then we're manufacturing lots of different products for different customers, and we've got we're reliant on so many different aspects of supply chain.
yeah,
I think if I did it again, I would. Well, firstly, I think actually I wouldn't do it on my own.
yeah,
Um, I think I would do it someone else. I think I wanted to do it on my own when I did it, but actually, in hindsight, I'd really much rather do it with. It took me so long to go from me to me and somebody else.
yeah,
Joel was my first employee, first official employee, and then uh, I think if I started with two people, we'd have complementary skill sets, or at least we'd be able to double the resource immediately. And you have that immediately have that sort of person to bounce off.
yeah.
Um, and keep it simple. I think if I did it again, I'd find something simpler.
Right.
Yeah, I think if I was, something that's easy to scale and grow and that's simple, basically.
Yeah, it's an interesting lesson. It is that once you've learned to build one business, you're building multiple businesses, or finally something, as you say, where the delivery, either the product or the delivery of the service, is a lot more straightforward.
I think so.
Takes
Yeah,
the hassle.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I think so. And I keep on telling people about this, but I've got my best friend from home actually has a smoked salmon business. And I keep on coming back to the fact that he basically has three ingredients. He has wood, he has smoked salmon, and he has salt. Okay, he's got to get some water from somewhere, and he's got to have the
Yeah,
team members and the premises. But and you know, obviously, there's a market cap with that. I don't know what the market's like, and some of that, you know, maybe data information feeding it into your choice, but just something simple, I think, would be what I'd like to do. Really, in all honesty.
yeah, no, I totally get it because the complexity in what you do is added to the complexity of running a business and what you do. And when you do that, it's always
Yeah,
like a square, isn't it? It's always like multiply the two together to get.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. I like what we do. Don't get me wrong. I think
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, on reflection, I'd do something simpler.
It's interesting. One thing, again, Brad, I mentioned it. We often talk about buying businesses or building.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the rules that we follow is primarily make it what we call a staple, i.e., people
Okay.
will continue to need it probably forever. So
They've eaten it, so they need more.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
consumable and it's a staple. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, anything from anything from food manufacture of a certain type, plumbing services,
Yeah.
electrical services. People always need one, and
Yeah.
if therefore it's very unlikely we'll ever run out of a demand. Whereas potentially, and I'm sure that's not the case in yours, but the more complex the product, the more market trends and market demands can vary that inherent ability to grow, I guess.
Yeah, and it's yeah, very much so. Got to find that niche area and get it into it, and then we've got all the supply chain to worry about. That's a global problem. Um, Very much at the behest of what comes out of Taiwan or all the rest of it. Yeah.
I remember Brad telling me this story, and I just thought it was really funny. So I think he was living in Australia at the time. He's Australian now, lives in the US. But he said he bought a property right on the edge of the telephone grid at the time, the landline type grid. So the telecoms company had to put a new pole in.
Okay. Yeah.
And so this guy turned up with this van with this pole and this drill. And
Yeah.
Brad went out to chat with him and he said, what are you doing? He said, how complex is doing this? He said, it's really easy. I press one button, it drills a hole, press the other button and it puts the thing in. He said, oh, and you get paid well for that? Oh, really, really well. And you can, and Brad was saying, you just thinking, this is the perfect business. It's like everybody will need, I mean, I guess nowadays we're more mobile, but everybody will need this done.
Yeah.
It's not difficult to do. I don't have a lot of training needs. The guys don't have to be particularly clever, be able to drive and press two buttons in the right order. And it just you just when you've been in more complex businesses, I think I'd mentioned before I was in a tech business myself, and the complexities of the product and the service that you offer, and you think, well, that's really simple. So yeah, interesting. And finally, what would be the best advice you could give an 18-year-old you if you could go back in time and do that?
Um, that's a good question. Uh, I think, what, I don't know. I'm not sure what advice I give myself, really. I'm not sure that I would say go sooner, but I think don't be afraid of it. Um, I was in a rush to do it, I think, and I
Right.
think
Yeah.
I could have been a bit. I think I should have been a bit more. This is going to happen when it happens. Um,
Yes.
it took me really. I think I was very well. I was quite young when I set it up, um, and I think that was. I don't know. It might have been easier with a bigger contact book, possibly. I guess maybe.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. No, that makes sense. But
no,
yeah,
no,
no,
yeah,
it's interesting because I work with a number of sort of entrepreneurial people and business owners, and what typically I see successful people do is they have a combination of both drive and patience.
yeah. Okay.
And it's almost like the two things are contrary, but you need that point of I'm going to get it done, but okay, this has happened. I need to
Yeah.
wait.
Okay.
And I think that's quite interesting, really, is that and I think the other thing is there's no right or wrong. I find it a very interesting question to ask people and ask myself sometimes. But ultimately, if we did anything different, maybe we wouldn't have ended up in the same place.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I really don't know actually. I was just think. I think I probably would have employed someone much bit quicker as well. I think I should have done that. I think I held off for a really long. In fact, you can see it on my chart. You can see I sort of reached a point and it sort of started to go over, and then I was about sort of 9 months in, and you can see where I decided, I know, okay, and then you can see it go again. It's
Brilliant.
sort of like, yeah. So I think that's probably, I'd probably go, almost try and go immediately. I think actually, right,
I
like,
think,
yeah,
I think that's a good learning.
yeah,
I used to talk to people about, a traditional exponential growth curve of a business, and then anything that increases the same percent will grow
yeah,
exponentially. And the first few years being establishment and survival, and it's quite flat, and it's a lot of hard work for not a lot of direct
yeah,
return. A lot of fear, because every decision could be the last if we get it wrong.
yeah,
Uh, and not being totally sure if we're going to make it. And the challenge is once we hit that knee point, we start to the increments start to grow. Um, if we're not careful and we stay in survival mode, then we don't do the things that we need to do, because we need to move from survival to investment mode. Invest in,
yes,
invest in
yeah,
systems.
yeah, agreed.
Except it's not trying to keep every penny into the business. It's that if I don't put it out there, it's not going to come back to me. Um,
Yes,
and it's such a
yeah,
difficult point to be at, because it's like what got us here was that rigorous running of a business right at its most lean, to start to go, right, I'm going to try stuff, I'm going to spend a bit of money here, and I'm going to see what might work. And it's very difficult because it's a total change of mindset, as you said. It's
yes, it is. Yeah, I mean, we felt it this year making our own products. To be fair, that's but it has taken a lot more time and resource out of the business, and just cash to do those things than I had expected. I think really,
yeah,
well, probably not more cash, but certainly more resource in
yeah,
terms of time from everybody to do to do a good job of what and what we've got now is brilliant. Actually, to be fair, better
brilliant,
than better than I would have thought. Actually, so that's
brilliant.
good.
That's
Um,
great to hear. Well, Neil, it's been fascinating talking to you, and thank you for sharing some of your learning, some of your history, and it'd be great to swing by in another 6, 12 months to just see how the growth is going and continuing to go. But for
yeah,
now,
absolutely.
for anyone watching that would like to get in touch with you or I.C.E Electronics, what would be the best way to do that?
Probably just go to the website. The contact details are all on there. And to be honest, probably pick up the phone. Generally,
Right,
we're sort of, dealing with fairly unique requirements. And it's easy to have a phone conversation about those things. Unless you want one of the products, and then you can just send us a thing from the website with like a mock shop on there, and there's inquiry file from.
wonderful. Well, again, once again, thank you so much for your time, and be good to catch up again
And
sometime.
you, Chris.
Thank you.
Great stuff. Thank you, Chris. Cheers.